retreat, and what you will feel, that's the most important, what you will do, also important, and who you may become. Who of a magical person do I want to become? Today, we're going to do a tiny little bit of history. I already gave you just a little bit of kind of my background, some facts about mushrooms. That helps the intellect. When the intellect knows the facts and the safety and it knows everything it needs to know about mushrooms, it's much easier to do the more difficult part, which is the surrender into the subconscious. So we will talk about how our retreat integrates the brain, the body, and trauma. The word of 2025, right? Trauma. What are some of the outcomes we see? Excuse me, some of the reported outcomes, some of the guests that return. The dosing, everyone loves to know, how much do I take? Is it too little? Is it too much? How do we do that dosing? And our daily schedule, especially of our upcoming 2 retreats in Joshua Tree at our sanctuary. And then we'll get into a little Q&A. Sound good? If it does, cool, let's go. All right. How do mushrooms work in the brain? I am not a neuroscientist, but man, do I talk to a lot of neuroscientists. And I have such a deep interest in this because when you have a felt experience of mushrooms, everyone's going to have a different experience. Some people have very visual, some people have very physical, some feel like they're using telepathy, some feel like they're revisiting old memories. But we do know that this is exactly what is happening in the brain. Pay attention to the ones here that have the asterisks, because those are the ones I really want to cover. If you know anything, if you've been researching psilocybin even for a few days, I'm sure you've heard of neuroplasticity, which is a really fancy way of saying brand new neurons in the brain, brand new connections. It's the way that we learn. It's when we're young, we have a lot of neuroplasticity, right? We can learn a new language, we can learn the piano. And that over time tends to, I don't know, has anyone been noticing as you get older? You're like, where is my plasticity? Mushrooms are fantastic for that. Excuse me. Whether that's microdosing or what we would call macro or therapeutic doses, which are the higher breakthrough doses that we take at the retreat. Both of those will encourage this in the brain. Simple are there. Default mode network modulation. Ooh, if you're a science nerd like me, you know what the default mode network is. It's just like it sounds. The default mode network is your default way of being. It's the default way that the brain interacts and connects and communicates. The modulation part is that during the psychedelic journey and for up to 1 month after, the rigidity of the default mode network in the brain is lowered deeply during the actual journey and slowly starts to come back online over about a month. So this is why integration and support after your journey is so important. Because if you learn all these new things about yourself and you forgive everyone in your life, but as that default, those default ways of being, default ways of thinking, eventually do come back online, unless you're really working during the retreat and those first few weeks after to implement new beliefs, new thoughts, new ways of being, new ways of relating, because that's what makes you who you are. So the sensation of this is different for everyone. Like I mentioned, the sensation of the brain connecting and talking in new ways is fascinating. And this is why I think a lot of people who've used psychedelics, you get this sensation that maybe a quote that you've heard 10,000 times, right? We're all connected. All is love. I accept myself as I am. And you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then suddenly in the mushroom space, it all makes sense and you can feel it internally. And all of a sudden it's like this knowing inside of your body that's connected to everything. And when someone says we are all connected or everything is made of love, you're like, oh, now I get it. But now I get it not in my mind, not in my logic. Now I get it in my whole being and in my body. That potentially could be the reason for that. The long-lasting effects. I don't want to go on too long about this, but one of the biggest research studies that is always quoted almost everywhere was from Johns Hopkins University, and they showed in that particular study they did that with one high dose of psilocybin, that 60% of their the people in the research study who had chronic long-term depression. So I'm forgetting the actual name of it, but we're like not responding to medication, not responding to therapy. 60% saw a noticeable major reduction in their depression for up to a year. That's incredible. There is not a single mental health medication on the market that is anywhere can even touch that, let alone without side effects. As we know, many long-term, short-term and long-term side effects of some other mental health medications. So cognitive flexibility. Doesn't that sound nice? Would anyone like a little cognitive flexibility right about now? I know at the end of the day I would. And I will say the combination of not only psilocybin mushrooms, but other magic mushrooms, because they're all magic, some just more than others, but lion's mane and turkey tail and reishi mushrooms, I personally believe, especially in the last 7 years, since I've been more, I've just taken quite a few more mushrooms, like in my morning coffee and throughout the day, eating more mushrooms, that I have a noticed difference in my flexibility to move between tasks, move between environments, remember things. It just feels like my brain has actually increased in capacity as I've gone from, let's say, 35 to 43 years old, as opposed to decline. And this is why right now there's a lot of research going on with psilocybin mushrooms and other mushrooms with degenerative brain disorders. So as the brain degenerates, right, Alzheimer's, dementia, the brain is degenerating. So what mushrooms seem to be doing is regenerating the brain, right? Neuroplasticity, cognitive flexibility. These are the things we lose as we age and with certain genetic disorders. It's my fun science part of the presentation. Now let's talk about our mental health, because the Buena Vida really focuses, when I tell a stranger what I do, I don't just say like, I work at mushroom retreats. It's not the best thing to just tell someone when you're out at the grocery store. But I generally say I work with mental health. I work with mental health. I work in a healing capacity. And then they say, oh, what do you do? And then I go into like, oh, I run a week, 5 to 7 day psilocybin mushroom retreats. But the foundation being like with humans and emotions and mental health, because that is the reason that most people are coming to these retreats. Some also come for creativity or inspiration, but most of us, let's just be honest these days, like if you're out here surviving in the United States without any sort of mental health issues, please tell me your secret. I would love to know. So the combination of mental health and somatics. Does anyone know what somatics? What is that word? It's a Greek word, the soma. The soma means of the body. So when you hear this fancy word, maybe you've heard the word somatic therapy, right? Somatic therapy is just kind of different than cognitive therapy, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, it's often called, which I'm sure some of you have done quite a bit of talk therapy. I still have a talk therapist, but I also have a somatic therapist, because it's a very different world. And there's so much that is hidden below our cognitive awareness. So most, I think, psychologists agree that 95% of everything about who we are is in our subconscious. It's a terrifying statistic, and I don't like that one, that we think we have so much control and we have so little control. So mushrooms work on the subconscious, right? On our filing system, on our belief system, all those things kind of running in the background that we don't always have access to, but you can figure them out when you're in a fight with your spouse or when something activates you. That's your subconscious coming online, telling you, oh, there's something here. So the workshops and the therapies that surround the mushrooms, right? We don't just, hey, come to the retreat, we're going to give you some good food and take mushrooms. There's so much that goes into having a profound psychedelic experience. And one of the biggest things I have learned over the years, in the past 10 years, that I've shifted in our programming is that if you have no way of kind of moving a lot of your stuck energy out of your body before you go into the mushroom space, it's going to be a lot more difficult. So even the days before and the mornings before, we do a deep breath work that's going to just release energy from the body. We move around a little bit, we dance. I usually don't tell people that, but we do, right? We move in ways that our body maybe isn't used to. And one of the main reasons, I just thought of this the other day, I've been teaching ecstatic dance for so many years. But what dance does to us, and this is why a lot of people I think are terrified of dancing, is that it's so chaotic and nonsensical that it actually brings up every single story about yourself and your ego. If you I try it, dance for 3 minutes. I don't like this. This is stupid. I feel like I feel dumb. I feel like this. It's like if you want to know every story of like maybe your inner critic, what they think about you, just start dancing. And then eventually it's like, oh, this is kind of fun. Like, oh, why haven't I done this before? But getting back to the somatics, going through a little bit of a release before you go into the mushroom space also helps you surrender. It helps you not be so closed and tight. And then you're going to drink your mushroom tea and expect to completely surrender. This is something I just love this idea, right? So, in ancient Greece, there was this idea, the way that they had their, in the Greeks, science, medicine, unbelievably advanced. Before, if you had an ailment of any kind, not an emergency, not like a broken leg, but if something was going on, you had anxiety, you were feeling off, something was wrong, before you went and saw a medical doctor, you first had to go to the theater. Now, why would they make you go to the theater when you needed to go see a doctor? Because you needed to have catharsis. You needed to have a cathartic experience. It gives me shivers thinking about it. You needed to cry. You needed to laugh. You needed to move something through your body. You needed to remember who you were. And then once those emotions were kind of shaken up and out of the way, then you could go deeper into your own healing. So this is basically why we use somatic therapies, to provide you with a catharsis so that when you're in the mushroom space where you also may have a catharsis as well, you already have begun to kind of like lube up all of those areas that have been very like stuck and rigid in your life. This also helps us like the traumatic release exercises, right? Trauma, I only want to make one note on this and then we'll move on. It was defined to me recently because I think, we think of big trauma, little trauma, all these different things. To the body, not to your mind, but to the body, trauma is anything that was too much and too soon. Anything. And it could be something small, like a loud sound, right? That you don't process and then you go about your day. And that's a tiny, tiny, tiny little like, oof, right? But you have enough of those. You live in a place where there's like explosions happening all the time. It is traumatic. Too much, too soon for the body to handle. That could be many, many things. And so when we speak of trauma, I'm sorry, I've worked with enough people. No one has zero trauma. No one. Because all it is was that you didn't have the availability at the time that it happened to process, to be understood, to be felt, and to be heard. So you could have a horrifically, and there's actually evidence on this, that children who go through an outwardly traumatic experience, for example, a parent passing away, they actually have fewer down the line problems with that trauma because the community showed up for them, their family showed up for them, they were able to talk about it, and it was actually out in the open. So it doesn't stay in the body as much. But those of us that grew up in households where we were not allowed to process or not given the time, or you be quiet, you're a kid and no crying, right? Like we learned this response that anytime we had an emotion, shut it down immediately. This is why we do these things now. What are the benefits of a retreat? I'm going to take a little sip of water here. We're getting through this, guys. We're getting to our Q&A. I hope some questions are coming up. These little bullet points right here are the reason that I very rarely do a one-off, come to my house, sit with me, and take mushrooms, because so much more happens in the context of a retreat. The retreat is what I did 10 years ago, an ayahuasca retreat that completely changed my life and shifted where I was going. And it wasn't just the ayahuasca, it wasn't just the wachuma or the cactus medicine, it was all of these experiences with the other humans. It was guided, I felt safe, I felt prepared. I was able to explore spirituality, which at that time I was an atheist materialist, and I was like, spirituality, what is that? But I considered it the human spirit. I was like, okay, I'll just consider that. Emotional healing that happens outside of the ceremony, right? The conversations in the hot tub late at night, someone listening to you and talking to you. There's so much emotional healing that happens outside of even just the ceremony. And I see it all the time and I get to witness it. We just talked about our somatic practices, the community and support that you have, meeting everybody before. I mean, honestly, you guys, I could go on way too long about some of the stories of the way that these guests, that these individual retreat guests have supported each other. I've seen people fly out to watch someone's band play for the first time. It was their dream to be in a band, and then they were in a band, and everybody flew out to see them. And we have a group right now that's trying to come all back together for a reunion, and on integration calls, like when you go through, I hate to use the term like war buddies, but those of you maybe that are veterans understand, like when you go through something extremely difficult or challenging or vulnerable with someone, it bonds you in a very deep and profound way. And this is what you may be, and most likely will be at some point during this retreat, going through. I'll just say it right now, no one really gets out alive. Please don't take that as an Instagram quote. But what I mean by that is no one gets out of this retreat guarded. Maybe a lot of people come in very guarded and very practiced at being like just saying the right thing at the right time. A lot of practiced vulnerability, right? Oh, I'll tell you one story that maybe sounds like it's vulnerable, but this medicine has a way of just cracking your heart open and cracking your defenses open and really returning you to a place of softness. I really want to say, like, softened in your heart. Maybe if you consider yourself kind of a cynical person, I can lean into cynicism sometimes. It softens those defenses against the world, against certain presidents, all whatever thing you have, right, that you feel very hardened against. Maybe you feel hardened against your future. I don't know, it's just all downhill from here, and nothing much to look forward to. That's common. I hear that, right? I don't know, I have what, 10, 20, 30 years left on this planet. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. To be softened in a group where you're being supported, let me tell you, that's it. Preparation integration, as we say, we have at least a 6 week, sometime a 2 month container around these retreats. So I just put out a video the other day where people are like, wow, this is expensive. It's a big investment. I was like, yeah, it is. It really is. I will never not say that it is not a big investment, what we're doing here. And not just an investment of money, but if you're going to get a lot out of this, you need to invest the time to like do the online prep work, come to the preparation call with us, right? Prepare yourself, know what your intentions are. The weeks before, I promise you, all kinds of stuff is going to come to the surface in your relationships and internally, and you're like, what is going on? Well, you're about to come to a retreat. You're about to go through a rite of passage, if you will. And those people that really take, again, those 2 weeks to a month after the retreat to integrate, to start to soften and change their actual belief patterns, the way they talk to themselves, the way they react or respond to triggering situations, bosses, spouses. Really look, oh no, wait, I have the time. I have neuroplasticity. I have a way to rewrite this. What is my inner judge saying? Can I create a new story? If you take that time and invest in not just like, oh, here's my money, I'm just going to go to this retreat and you can give me mushroom tea. If that's your prerogative, that's your prerogative. But something I tell people is that you can have the most profound experience of your life, the most profound, write home, tell the world you saw everything, you met God, you went here, you went to outer space. Um, and if you don't integrate those lessons into your life, few months, 2 months, 3 months, it will just be a memory. It will just be a really fun story. Um, I hate to say that because it's not like selling the experience, but it's true because psychedelics are a mirror and they're a flashlight of like showing us into these places of our lives. But 99.9% of the rest of your life every day, you're not going to be taking mushrooms, right? Hopefully, that's our goal. So you're going to be living your life just as a regular person in your regular time. And you're not going to be seeking these like high states where you have all this information and everything. But the point of integration is to like bring it back here, bring it back to this earth, bring it back to your relationships, to your work, to your creativity, to your heart. And yes, it's fun to have, an out of body experience or to travel through the universe and feel like you're connected to everything. Those are really fun experiences. But what does it really matter if you're still judgmental and you're still cruel to others and you're still cynical and you have a negative outlook and you don't treat others well and you're not excited about your life? Who cares, right? Moving on. We're almost done. I'll let you read through a little bit of these and I'll tell you some of my favorite of the outcomes. These are the most common ways that guests describe going back home and how they feel in the next few weeks after their retreat. Emotional release, and we could all use a little bit of that. Self-awareness, that's an important one for those of you that ask, oh, why do I do that? Why do I do that? Why do I do that? Well, you need some more self-awareness. Depression and anxiety, number one and two reason why anyone comes to a retreat is to reduce the symptoms of depression and anxiety. Mushrooms have a way, not always, but they have a way of helping you get to the root. I like to think of depression and anxiety like a tree with lots of branches, right? Your symptoms, and this is how you feel, and this is what your body does, and can't get out of bed, right? All these symptoms of anxiety and depression, which is for most people, not all. I don't want to say that all depression is this way, but for those that have experienced it, let's say like generalized anxiety and depression, is that there is a root. There is a root that sometimes is so strong that your body's only defense is depression and anxiety. And it sounds crazy because some of us have suffered very deeply and for many years. That is your body's best way of defending itself at the time. So trying to only manage the symptoms can provide a tiny bit of relief, right? Maybe manage with some breath work or some medication here and there. But at the end of the day, it's like you're just kind of like chopping off little leaves on that tree and you're not like getting to what is the core emotion or the core belief about myself that maybe is branching out into some of these states in my life. Yeah, some compassion, empathy. I think some things that we could, this is my favorite one, altered perception on challenges. Who couldn't use a little bit of that? That's my favorite one because I will admit to everyone here and everyone that knows me, I can tend to naturally have kind of just a negative outlook on challenges when they first come to me. It's just how I'm wired. And so every time I have, probably twice a year, I would say I do a higher dose mushroom experience. The perception, like the way that it changes how you look at the difficulties of your life is magic. It's just like, ooh, this is for me. Ooh, this challenge is great. Okay. Oh, I can see how this is working for me. I can see how that is working for me. It is really, really wild. And you start to realize that your perspective on challenges is everything, right? Viktor Frankl, one of my favorites, who is an Auschwitz survivor, said that the last freedom of man is his perspective. The last freedom, the only freedom we really have is to choose our perspective. So to be able to change that is everything. For our dosing, I'll answer some deeper questions about this, but I just want to hit this very simply, which is that during our 5-day retreats, when we do 2 full dose ceremonies, the 7-day retreats, we do 3. So if you're in for a wild ride, we have a 7-day retreat coming up in August that we're planning right now in Mexico. First dose for most people, some people fall outside of these lines. Some are very, very sensitive and they start smaller than this. Some know their history and they may start a little bit higher just because they know themselves and they know maybe they've been on medication for a long time. But it's generally 1.5 to 3 grams, which should be for most people a therapeutic dose or a breakthrough dose where you're shifting out of this kind of reality, right? You have an altered perception and altered emotions, sound shifts, your vision shifts, and generally you're considered what's called dropped in. You're dropped into the space. From there, we do a lot of counseling and talking with you and moving into the second ceremony to see, how did you do? How did that feel? Right? If you're having anxiety before, how was your anxiety? Okay, kind of dwindled down and then you got into it. Okay, perfect. Something else that we do is we offer a second dose of medicine after the first hour. So this helps on 2 accounts. One, we never want to give you too much in the beginning. So we do give you a full dose, right, of what we kind of agreed on. And then after an hour, you'll have one of us come whisper in your ear. And it's always funny because we tell people, but inevitably someone goes, ah. We'll come over, hey, Jeff, hey, Carol. And you sit with yourself and no one believes me when they're in their logical mind. They're like, well, how will I know if I need more? Well, how will I know? And we're like, you'll know. You'll know by about an hour if the effects have set in or not. And then I will know, and my team will know because we have dosed so many people by looking at your eyes, by looking at your body, how you're speaking to us. If you need like a little tiny bit more, or maybe you need a lot more. Maybe you're feeling very sober. You're like, look, nothing's really happening. Okay, great. You might need, quite a bit more than that. So with that redosing within the hour, it really helps us find that perfect place that you need to be. And with that said, dosing is mysterious. I've given people crazy high doses and they've had a really chill night. I've given people tiny, tiny amounts and they like went to outer space. So it's the mushrooms also have a role in this, and they tend to do what they do. I like to call the mushrooms they feel like a collective of yeah, they just feel like a collective of energy. And you'll get to have your own experience and relationship with whatever that means, right? From all the way from, again, this is just a material substance that I drank in a little tea with some honey and some ginger, and it kind of scrambled up my brain and I felt some different things, all the way to I felt this energy of the mushrooms. They were talking to me. It felt like a consciousness. It felt like an entity. All of those answers are correct. All of those answers are welcome, however you decide to relate to the experience. And you'll notice the next day in integration, everyone has a different way of speaking about the experience that they had. Let's look at the schedule. How's everybody doing out there? Do a little shake or something. I'm on Instagram. Oh, I got one person online. Hello. I'll let you guys look over this really quickly. But the most important parts of the 5-day are, people love to know, when are we actually taking the mushrooms? So you can see there day 2 and 3. They are back to back. We've never had any issues with that. In fact, I think it's really powerful. And then as well, a day trip and integration day on day 4, where you're like, whoo, I just took mushrooms 2 days in a row. I need to relax for a minute. And within this, you'll see day 1, and it depends on how we're feeling, but day 1 for our sound bath experience at night, we just started implementing this recently, offering an optional microdose. So we'll get to talking in the retreat about microdose. What is its place in the rest of your life? What is it doing for your brain and your body? And you'll get to kind of have that experience of a very, very, very tiny dose of mushrooms that may not really change much, but some people can kind of start to feel just the shift that the mushrooms make in your body. And it kind of prepares you well for day 2, which is when we're getting into it. Here's just a few little pictures of the Buena Vida Sanctuary. I don't know if any of you guys have been here. This is our land in Joshua Tree. It's 5 acres. This picture here is actually really old. It's from the original owner when he had that big the Airstream trailer out there. And in the corral, we have now alpacas. We have 3 alpaca boys that live with us in the corral. We've built more rooms. The giant yurt is out where you see that little corral. There's a saloon there, and there's some saloon people that live with us. You'll have to figure out what that is when you get there. But there's a yurt out back that we just built about a month ago. That's a 30-foot giant ceremony space. So inside this giant yurt with it has a huge dome on top. And I haven't been in this yet. I'm not going to be there until May. But I just heard from our facilitators that the last guests all were talking about how like the candles in the yurt were reflecting in the dome up above, and it's like a clear dome kind of open to the sky. And it just sounds absolutely fantastic. I have been in a yurt before, but this one is going to be our yurt. Oh, we're not getting into that yet. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to start answering some questions. I'm going to stop my share. Gave you guys a lot to think about, a lot to process there. And before you go, I have something very special that's coming up for June and for May that I almost got into there. But I want to get into some of these questions. Let's see if anybody's on Instagram. If you want to ask me a question, you can either unmute and you can put your little Zoom hand up, or you can just unmute and ask a question. Or if you feel more comfortable dropping it in the chat, I'm happy to answer anything you guys want to know. If it's too personal, I'll tell you, but I'm kind of an open book, as you may have noticed.
Hi. Thanks so much for your overview. And you may have already said this, but I'm not tracking very well lately. Um, do you do an assessment of like to determine if people are appropriate for the retreats?
Excellent question. No, I did not cover that. Yes, so that is a very important and big part of the application process.
Hmm.
So the way that that looks is when you first apply, there's quite a few really important medical and background questions, medications, psychological state, any history of certain psychiatric disorders. And so this intake form has been designed by both a nurse practitioner on our team as well as an MD, and as well as actually some of the elders that I have trained with in with the more traditional medicine path in Ecuador and Colombia. And so this gives us a little snapshot picture of some of the questions we might ask on our background screening call. So the next step after that is to have a call with Shandy, who is our operations director. She's been with us for 5 years. She
Hmm.
talks to all of the guests. She does this call, and most of the time it's, people on certain medications that might need to titrate down or talk to their doctor. Psilocybin is extremely safe, but there's some medications that can really dull the effects and are just working on the same receptors in the brain. As well as, we walk a thin line here because quite a few people that come to us are not in a very good place, right? And so they're like, I'm not very mentally healthy. I'm not very mentally stable. That's why I'm seeking this out. And yet we need to find that they are stable enough, right? Stable
Hmm.
enough to go through the process, to really open themselves up. And maybe, some people are like, I have my therapist that I can call if I need to while I'm there. Yeah, so and a lot of that too, and it's if it's something beyond Shandy, like she can't understand, it comes to me.
Okay.
And I've been with, really, between Ecuador and now the past 7 years with Buena Vida, thousands of people doing the screening process. So I really know what to look out for. And then there's going to be some pieces where you might have to work with your own doctor, right? On certain medications. I will say, of the other mushroom retreats I know of personally, we are a little bit more flexible with people who need to stay on medication. So
Hmm.
some people need to stay, they're like, look, I have 2 weeks, 3 weeks before this retreat. I can't go off of my SSRIs, or I can't go off of these medications. I can maybe go on them a low effective dose during the retreat. And to this day, we have had no one that
Hmm.
we weren't able to get them to that breakthrough place. You might
Okay.
just need a high dose. You might just, right? We might need to like play with it a little bit. And we have guests sign a waiver if they do need to stay on certain medications, just saying, this is safe, but you may not have the experience you're looking for, right? You may not have the right? Like you see in the movies, right? This kind of out of body or like this magical experience. It may just be a more subtle effect, but it's still working on the brain. It's still providing all of those positive brain effects that we listed. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. And maybe more specific, I had written the word grief. I just lost my 25-year-old son 2 months ago, and so I'm curious um, to know if you feel, and this may be putting you on the spot, if it's
Mm.
too much too soon for someone who is new in grief.
Mm. I really want to just offer you my heart.
Thank you.
Um, just the fact that you are showing up in a way for yourself right now is so powerful and so beautiful. I really can I really can feel you. I can hear you and I can feel you.
Thank you.
And I really want to say that um, we, over the years, have worked with quite a few, actually, a few that come to mind, a few parents that have lost children. Um, there was even in kind of the early days a mom and then a couple, and both of them lost a child at the exact same age who had the same name. And it was the most unbelievable synchronicity.
Mm.
Many people, I mean, honestly, other than your family and your loved ones, I can't think of a better place to be held in this, because everyone, regardless, I mean, you are obviously like 2 months is, deep, deep, deep in this process.
Yeah.
That would be something I think you just really need to ask yourself, because I would have no way of being able to tell you
Yeah.
you are at in your process, right? If you feel that you have the stability even to kind of to show up for yourself right now, or if you just need sweetness and gentleness. And a lot of times, this is a tiny, tiny example, but it was really important. A few weeks ago, a month ago, I was just going through something very deep on all fronts. It's like we've all experienced when just everything comes at you at once. And I was talking to my mentor about supposedly these business decisions, and she said, Amanda, you're not making any decisions right now. You're not going anywhere. You're not doing any medicine. You're not going to breath work. You're just going to treat yourself like a newborn baby.
Mhm.
Quiet. Don't leave the house, right? Calm the system. And so that may be that this is the right time for nothing, just
Mhm.
calming the system
Yeah.
for quite a bit of time, which can feel scary because I imagine that in the calm and the quiet is maybe when the grief gets bigger.
Yeah.
And many people I know, just because I work so closely with grief and with others experiencing grief, that many times, right, staying busy is what helps them from falling apart. Right, doing it more tasks, being with more people is actually the thing that's helping
Mhm.
them stay together. So those, I mean, right, that's going to be such a personal journey for you. And
Yeah.
what I would be nervous about is that the, psilocybin does have quite an effect on the body and quite an effect on the brain. And so
Okay.
it can be, a little bit destabilizing at first,
Mhm.
quite a bit in a short amount of time. Um, that being said, right, on the other hand, moving through places where you're looking for an answer, you're like, I don't know what else to do. This is just a horrific tragedy and there's no answers and it's incomprehensible. When you bring that to the medicine, man, so many times you can find such relief.
Mm.
I mean, I've seen it. Just
Yeah.
shocking, unbelievable. There was a man, and I won't mention his name, but I know that he would allow me to tell this story, that he was in his 60s, and when he was a teenager, his mother had committed suicide.
Mm.
And until his mushroom journey, he hadn't really mentioned it. It wasn't something he felt like sharing with anyone. But in his journey, through a series of events that, he went through, he was able to make complete peace, to speak with her again, to understand what was going on at the time deeply in his body, to feel the peace that she had now, to feel how much anger he had. So many, many things from years, 50 years of this being buried in a night.
Mm.
And I could see in his face the next day, and he's like, it's over. I'm good. It's over.
Mm.
And so I don't sometimes sometimes in my work I feel that I'm at risk of being dramatic, I guess is the word, or oh, so over the top, but I see these things happen all the time.
Yeah.
I see these absolute profound, unbelievable healings that you think should take months or years, or right?
Mhm.
And my teacher Salvador used to say healing happens in a moment. In a moment.
Yeah.
It can. And other things can take a long time. So that was, kind of a long-winded way to say, I think you really need to trust your own body and like where you're at, where your nervous system is, right? Are you able to take things in right now? Does everything feel overwhelming? Just sounds and lights and too much information. If that feels like a lot for your actual physical system, um, it may not be the right time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And asterisk always to what I say, if you can't stop thinking about it and drinking and researching, like this is how I first came to ayahuasca. It just wouldn't go away. Just the desire to be with the medicine, the desire to experience it, even though I was terrified in my mind, I was terrified. And I'm like, only crazy people do that. And people who are much worse off than me do that. I wouldn't do that. Why would I go all the way to the Amazon? No, 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 no. But then the dreams and the research and the everything, and the only way I can describe it is you just feel a calling and it's
Mhm.
the time. And that's
Thank
up to you. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for sharing that with us and letting us hold you in that.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Wow. Hmm.
I might add something if I could do that. This is Benson.
Hi Benson. Do you wanna turn your video on at all? I'd love to see you.
Well, I can't get it on and my light's on my camera and I'm not sure what is wrong, but
No worries then.
Benson and Carol, but anyway, first of all, to the others there, I just was at a retreat in March and and thinking about Carrie particularly, it's a profound loss. I was grieving two losses, one that I had compartmentalized for 50 years, and a sister who had just died, a younger sister. And what I can say is that the power of the Gestalt, the entire process, including the medicine, which beat me up the first night because my body was not happy, but I had an opportunity to grieve at a depth I had never grieved before. And it was healthy. And I came back quite unburdened. So I will just say I'm grateful for that. And each person has their own time, and I will return again. I feel like I've just scratched the surface, but I don't have to grieve when I return. So I have a couple questions for you. One of them is not exactly about a retreat itself, because we've already put in our deposits, my wife and I, and she has some, but she will do those with a phone call, I think, when she sends in her things. But um, you had mentioned this time that you would do a microdose the first day, and that seems very appealing. I think I read someplace else that through the church operation in Joshua Tree, that there's opportunities to source or get microdoses. So that's kind of my question for you. And it's not about the retreat itself, but it is about the opportunity to engage in microdoses in a safe way and in a spiritual way, not in a recreational way. So that's kind of a question.
Thank you. David, right? David Benson?
Yeah, that's right.
I always recognize the names because I'm always looking at everything.
By the way, it was an outstanding experience. It was
Oh,
wonderful, even though the medicine beat me up badly.
you never
But
know.
it was telling me something.
You never know. Yeah, that
Yeah.
first I've learned it's in my nature and many people's nature, right, to be a people pleaser. But once I started doing this work, man, I couldn't be a people pleaser because a lot of people after that first night are like, what did you put me through? I'm so disappointed. world is happening. And I was like, trust the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like, we say it's like an old rug that's been in your house for 40 years and no one's ever cleaned it. And the medicine just starts, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why I never do one ceremony. Never. Unless someone's had multiple experiences, but just one. Imagine if you had to go home the next day, right?
No.
No, one ceremony, again, unless it's like you've been doing it multiple times, like it really isn't the best idea, in my opinion. Some people do it that way, but yeah, so the microdosing for me, I've just been thinking about this. The first night, something I always like to repeat because I feel like it's gone off the rails in the world, a true microdose of anything, LSD, coffee, mushrooms, should be a sub-perceptual dose, right? Under your perception. So you should be able to go to work, drive a car, do anything with a microdose of mushrooms. Some people out in the world are like, I took a gram, it's a microdose. I was like, that is not, if feeling shifts and changes, that is not a microdose. So generally a microdose is about around 1/10 of 1 gram, maybe even starting a little bit lower than that. For me, when I take 1/10 of a gram in ceremony, I can still start to feel some things. So for me, it would be lower because I'm very sensitive to the mushrooms. They kind of just always live inside of me. And the idea is that really the idea to me, people do microdosing for all kinds of reasons, right? Oh, I want to improve my cognitive function. I want to be more focused. Some people, they say that after about a month, they really start to notice there's this like spaciousness. Everyone just calls it spaciousness, right? Between when something maybe irks you or you might react before, there's this space of like, huh, it's interesting. It's really, really an interesting effect of microdosing. And then beyond that, there's not enough studies out to like really prove any of the long-term benefits other than what we know that what it's doing in the brain. That being said, to me, there's no harm, right? If you're psychologically healthy, if you went through the experience and you feel, you don't have again, big family history of personality disorders or psychosis, and you feel you haven't been hospitalized, like all of these things we would want to look out for, I think that microdosing is pretty safe. And we do have someone who helps us. And once you are a member of the church, you're a member of the church forever. And so you have the right under the Religious Freedom Act and the US Constitution to have sacrament on you. So the sacrament of our church is mushroom medicine. And so you are legally able to have that on you and to carry it with you. Now, does that mean you should go around and like show it to the cops in your neighborhood? No, right? You don't want to be taken to court and have to prove the U.S. Constitution. And a lot of local law enforcement is like, they don't know about that. However, we've had the same person for many years, and he sends it very discreetly in the mail. Doesn't really say anything, right? But it's in like the capsules are in a specific dose. And then we provide you with the protocol and like what to kind of do the first few weeks, when to take days off, when to take days on. The first few times you do it, I say don't have anything to do that day, right? Have a full Saturday afternoon because you might notice, whoop, that one was a little bit, oh, I'm starting to, things feel a little bit different. So you want to have, a really free afternoon as well. It can even at a tiny dose, the mushrooms are very much work on our emotional body and our kind of spiritual body, as you have felt, right? And even if you don't know what that means, they just bring up things that are kind of lingering below the surface. And it's good to have the time to, right, to be away, right, be in a park, journal, spend some time with yourself. I like that. Some people just take it in the morning with my other stuff, and it's just like part of my stack. But other people, when I rarely microdose, but when I do, it's Saturday morning. I have the whole afternoon to myself, right? Maybe I feel called to go on a long walk. Maybe I feel called to really rest, right? But I leave myself open to whatever that subtle message might be that's, coming from my body. So yeah, drop me. I have your email, but you can drop it in the chat and I will connect you with our sacrament provider that he is that makes a lot of the medicine for our retreats. I am such a traveler and I move around so much, and I haven't been able to stay in one place long enough to grow my own mushrooms in quite some time. However, this is my dear, dear friend, and I trust him completely. And he's a much better mycologist than I am. He's much better with the growing and the growing of mushrooms than I am, I'll be honest.
Well, that's good news to us. Uh, did you say you have my email, or should email you?
Let me write your name down just as a note. I have it. Yeah, I absolutely have it. And I'll
Yeah,
have Shandy send you
yeah,
that
that'd
tomorrow.
be wonderful. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, real quick, since you mentioned that, I'm going to show you guys the last slide because it has to do with microdosing, and it has to do with a, I don't want to call it a course. It's more of like a live, let's call it a container. That's what they say in this world. It's a 6-week container. I'm just going to show you one last thing here for those of you that are on, because I'm really, really excited about this. Oh, that was the wrong one. Gotcha. There we go. Okay. Can you guys see that on your screen, hopefully? Okay, this is the first ever, which I guess is just big for me, the first ever online cohort of people that I am putting together, and it's going to be called How to Feel, a Microdosing Adventure. I just really sat with what I wanted this to be for the last, I don't know, 6 months. This has been coming to me. And the number one question that I think drives me crazy in any of the mental health world, emotional world, whatever you want to call it, is like, you just have to feel your emotions. You just have to feel your anger. Like, feel it, feel your sadness, really feel it. And you're like, but how? Right? Do I indulge my emotions? Do I let them hang around too long? What if I do that? And how long is long enough? And what does it mean? What does it mean when someone says feel your emotions? So what we're going to be doing is on Saturdays, I'm going to send out a microdosing kit to you as a part of this. And all of us, an hour before we come online, are going to microdose together in different parts of the country or the world. And then we're going to come on to Zoom together, and we're going to go through each week a different emotion and how to process that. Grief, as you'll see there, is the very first one. I'm not sure if this little guy, hold on just a second. I'm going to get this out of the way here. I'm going to move this guy down here just for myself. Grief, anger, shame, joy. Joy is one you say, oh, why do I need to learn how to feel joy? A lot of us don't have access to joy. Joy feels dangerous to a lot of us. And this is all based on the somatic work that I've done with my coach. Her name is Stevie Wright. And it's all about getting out of the narrative of our stories of how we're feeling. And then this, and then that happened, and that person did this. You get a little bit of time for that, and then you drop into the body where everything really lives. And we actually get to process through these big emotions. Now, each week, maybe we're spending a week with grief, but something else is coming up for you that week. We're going to go live, right? Maybe it's a few people per week. It's whoever needs that help. And I'm going to guide you through what's called a somatic dissolve, where we get to the internal, actual felt sense root of that emotion. And we actually make it bigger. It sounds crazy, but if you have it in your body in a safe way when you're being witnessed and when you're being held by others and you're being guided, you can let that emotion take over completely. You can let it say things. You can let it, maybe it makes a sound. A lot of times it makes a movement. And this is magical work if you have never done it. It's unbelievable what it does in the body, and the microdosing really gives us more access to that. After we kind of go through these dissolves, it brings a lot up, right? And the beauty of watching others go through them and how much you learn from seeing this it's unbelievable. Every week we're going to do an integrative breath work. So we're going to do a good 30, 40 minutes of breath work. We're going to be laying down. I'm going to be guiding you because the breath is what's going to help us complete that process of everything that just came up, release it through the breath. And then after that, usually kind of in this design is the emotion has settled, it feels seen, it feels heard, it feels good in the body, and then you're able to then go back into the intellect or the insight, or maybe, get back into the mind a little bit about here's what I've learned from this, or here's how this made me forgive something, or whatever that looks like. So this is the best way that I have found when I personally microdose. This is what I like to do. It's funny. I don't always like to do it, but it happens where it's like something is here, right? Something is coming up in me. I have a process. I trust my body. I know how to integrate this. I don't have to be afraid of my emotions anymore. I wish they taught this to children. I can't wait to get this into schools, right? How do I feel an emotion? What does it mean when it sticks around too long? What does it mean when I'm overindulging an emotion and I'm not letting it pass? This is the base of deep emotional awareness and processing and intelligence. And we're going to do it, as I always do, together in a group. Because I think that being witnessed by other people is some of the best medicine in the world, truly. So I just want to tell you guys about that. As usual, I am late. I'm over time. I totally have time for another question if anyone has them. But if not, I want you guys to have a beautiful evening. So
I have a
excited.
quick question. Sorry.
Let's go right
Do you,
ahead.
you said you do have time?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was curious, two things. One, how much physicality is involved like in Joshua Tree? The reason I'm asking, I can walk, but I need double knee replacements, and I just want to make sure we're not going to be traipsing through the forest or anything. Because for me, that until these knees get replaced, that's going to be a no.
Heard. No, that's actually a great question. Joshua Tree is all flat, which is really good.
Okay.
There's no, there's only one room, which is usually like couples will share, that has stairs. Everything else
Oh,
is
well, that's not a big deal. Yeah.
everything else is flat, and there's no required specific movement. So even like the workshops and stuff, sometimes people, they just want to be there, but they want to sit on a yoga mat, right? And
Okay.
they just want to maybe sit in a chair and move as they are. We've had quite a few people that have just very different abilities or even different desires throughout the week, right? They're very tired. They just want to observe. So there's nothing that would get in the way of that.
Okay. And does this medicine, by the way, I'm a nurse. So when you talk about the neuroplasticity, I understand all that. Does this also work with resetting the nervous system? I know that we constantly have to do that, but for people that are in functional freeze or, fight or flight all the time, does this, when you do the mushrooms and you integrate afterwards and, really follow things, does that help regulate your nervous system?
Fantastic question. I think that if all of us paid so much more attention to our beautiful central nervous system, a lot of us would be a lot better off. So that is a great.
Yeah.
I don't, it's interesting. I don't feel I'm qualified to answer, does it reset the nervous system? Because I'm not even actually sure what that means. I hear it a lot, right? Like I hear, oh, you just completely reset your nervous system as if it's like a computer, and right. And then all of a sudden it's,
But you have to reset it a lot because you still can go into fight or flight. But for me, I've been living in one and then I'll go in another. And there's things, but will it help it reset easier? Maybe that's the better question.
I absolutely believe so, because I get to witness people throughout the week. I get to see their bodies change, their eyes, their face. I get to see their physicality, the way they're responding change. And that to
Mm-hmm.
me shows that they're moving out of those. Again, when we're stuck for a very long time in freeze or fight or flight, right? We can't even get out of those states, even when we're calm. That's
Yeah.
a complete dysregulation of the system. And this is why we spend, 4, 5, 6, 7 days together, because it's not a situation where you'd want to like go away for a day, take some mushrooms and go back home. You actually do need to like remove some things, from your life for a few days in order to do this. And so much of the breath work and even the little small breaths that we'll teach you throughout the week are really, a lot of it is based on my knowledge of how to do this with the nervous system, right? Playing like making sure we're activating the vagus nerve, which is responsible for calming the nervous system. And the mushrooms themselves, it was kind of like David was saying, um, and this relates to kind of what I was talking about with the somatic dissolves, right? That we do with that somatic work, is that when a traumatic event or story or something is just, it gets stuck in our tissues. I always like to say our issues are in our tissues. That's one of my say because it's so true. We think our issues are in our mind, and if we just come up and say, well, that person did that and I forgive them and therefore I feel better. Our issues are not in our mind. We can tell everybody about them, but they're in our body. They're in our system. And because of this, our body, being very smart that it is, will learn you are not safe, therefore you are in freeze. You are not safe, therefore you are, you're in fight or flight or fawning, right? Always kind of like, oh no, it's fine, I'm fine, everything's fine. So to me, in order to really truly get out of those chronic states that you're like chronically in that place, you do need to face and move through some of the things that are keeping you there, right? Some of those
Yeah.
those things that are like, here's why being frozen keeps you safe. And the mushrooms, I think what they do is they're kind of a flashlight. I like to say that they show you like, oh, you see this? Here's that time in your life, or here's those moments where your body learned run away, or your body learned stay small, don't say anything, right? Those are all like, when you start looking at the way the body responds to anything as actually, it thinks it's beneficial, right? It thinks it's doing the right thing. It thinks depression is the cure. It thinks anxiety is a way to keep you safe. The outcome to us may be terrible. It's like, well, I don't want to live like this. But to the body, it's like, no, 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 I'm keeping you safe, which is my whole job. So doing this in a safe way where you're able to explore those stories or those places where you needed to forgive or let go in a safe way, it's incredible what it can do for the body. I hope that answers that. As far as like
Right.
resetting, we just focus a lot on that, a lot on those practices also outside of the mushroom space, because being in a place where you feel again, where your brain is so open and it's connecting in so many ways, not just during the ceremony, right? The whole next day, right? There's this, oh, my emotions are bigger and everything's kind of open, and right, I can take things in a new way. Those are the times when the soil is really fertile. And to do like a slow integrated breath the next morning, right, where you're just reteaching your body like, I am safe. I am here. I am grounded. This is why we do this, because the brain is so fertile and it's taking in new information. Not like, it's not safe, I need to go hide. I need to, right, all the things that maybe, I hate to say it, but age 0 to 10, like that's where we learned most of these kind of go-to habits that we have. And then they're generally compounded by other things that happen in life, right? The daily and all of life. So yeah. I'm so glad that you, as a nurse, hopefully can take back some little things and to teach people these things, right? Of like that they have
Yeah.
control of their reaction, their nervous system, right? They can use their breath, they can use these tools. It's not that it cures everything, but I think I don't know how to say this delicately.
You can just say it. I'm okay with,
It's funny that
in my profession, we can't fluff things a lot of times. So
I just think that, and I think everyone would agree, even people who work for pharmaceutical companies, when we try to medicate and just subdue everything without having any way of processing it, it just is
yeah,
long term.
a
Like,
pill from everything, does not get to the root cause. It just helps manage the symptoms, but it doesn't make anything go away.
it doesn't, it's unfortunate. It's really
Yeah,
good, really good at symptom management. I will say that, like, like if you need it, you're in an emergent situation, right? Like
yeah,
you absolutely, but over time, if you're only trying, and I mean, trust me, this is a lot of people who come to us, right? I've been on this for 20 years, 30 years. It's not working. Why am I still on this? Why am I still taking this? What is now? It's starting to give me little seizures. It's starting to have all these long-term effects. I'm getting,
right.
um, and the number one thing I've heard, and I think that mushrooms are the opposite of this. I heard this very early on from someone who said that he had been on the same kind of like mental health SSRI medication for, I think, 25 years. And he said, Amanda, in the same week of my life, a good friend of mine, really good friend, they had their first child that they had been hoping for a really long time. Another friend from high school died. And do you know what I felt in both of those things? What those medications do is they just tighten your ability to feel joy or pain or pleasure or suffering down to a tiny, tiny, tiny little spectrum, which is just sad, right? I mean, but one of the hardest lessons, it is, oh, I don't like this lesson, but it is true. We live in a duality, and in order to feel all of these ones, the joy, the pleasure, the creativity, the love, the expansion, community, all those ones that everybody wants to feel, you also have to experience and feel the pain, the grief, the hatred, the like just all of those things that we're always trying to avoid. It's, if you want to grow as a human, it's both directions. And I think Benson and Carol are signing off. I hope to see you guys soon. But like David was saying, right, his first night with the mushrooms, oh, they tore me apart and they were doing this and that, and I didn't like it. Like, true emotional depth is being with everything, right? Showing up as best you can in your deepest grief, like more of you be in that place. And that is, trust me, I've been in this work for 10 years and I am a baby. I am a baby at that. But I remember it. I remember when I'm having those moments of like, here I am in shadow, in my fear and just terror. And never did I think I was going to get here again. And I'm in a deeper place than I've ever been. And that my shame is online and everything is telling me to hate myself. I remember like, this is what's expanding me, so that in the moments, sometimes towards the end of the retreat, when there's just like huge breakthroughs and so much joy and like beautiful tears and, you know, watching people whisper and give each other hugs and like, you know, I also now have the capacity for like great joy and an unbelievable compassion and like so much empathy. And my heart, I was thinking this today, I'm so sensitive right now tonight. I got real sensitive just talking to Carrie, but I was on a walk today and just someone had the most beautiful roses and I was like tearing up at the roses and I was like, my heart is so open. You know, my heart is so open to this world, and that means it can get broken a lot, and it does. To be
But it's okay to feel. I mean, I grew up in a time where it wasn't okay to feel, and just ignore it, it will go away, is what I was always told. And it doesn't go away. I mean,
that was the, you know, most of the people that we have worked with over the years have been, generally the age group is like 45 to 75. And my parents, they both just turned 80 this year. And, you know, so I have like true kind of like older boomer parents, right? But I've learned, like, you know, the from that generation, right? Like, suck it up, pull up your bootstraps, like, get on with it, move on with your life. I mean, like, the whole paradigm has shifted completely of what it means to like, to really be with yourself. Emotions, are you kidding? That was not valued. Women and your emotions. Oh man, oh geez. And I was like, men are very emotional too, let me tell you. They don't
oh yeah,
consider anger an emotion. I was like, that's a pretty big emotion.
yeah.
They get
And
pretty
one more quick question.
Yeah.
Will you ever have a 7-day retreat for like the one in California? Do you have one?
um
Because that's what I'm looking for. I just wanted to stay closer to here,
Yeah.
but I was just curious because
No,
it's been calling to me for a while. And the only reason I haven't done it is because I'm finishing up my doctorate here in May. And so school has been holding me back. I didn't want to do both at the same time.
that's a lot.
Yeah. So like, but I'm ready. Like and this came in my mailbox and I was like, I believe in signs. The universe gives us signs all the time. And I was like, yeah, I think it's time I listen to a session, because I've had this on email for months, probably a year,
Yeah.
actually. And it was like, I think it's time.
I love that. You know, I'm the same way. I was just telling Shandy, my assistant, it's like, I like when certain people, certain whatever creators or different classes, and I just read their email every now and then, and I don't do anything. And it's, oh, what are they up to? I don't do anything. And then every now and then you're like, oh, I think I'm ready for that thing. Let me go look at those
Yeah.
emails, and it's like, I love that, right? I love that. And then by then you've got a little bit of information here or there, and then it's when you're ready, you're ready. Like I would tell people that, like, how do I know if I'm ready? I'm like, you just will know. I know that sounds weird. The
Well, I
mushrooms.
think it calls to you, doesn't it? Just like I've heard Mother Ayahuasca calls to you, and you'll know.
It's so funny because at that time I was the most non-spiritual person, and even to my like, I just feel it calling me. I don't know how to describe it.
It does, though. The universe, it will get right in your face and be like, "Hey, we've been trying to get your attention."
Well, yeah, Southern California, what's funny is like the ranch, I'll say this, the ranch in Joshua Tree isn't as kind of like luxurious and with as many amenities as some of the places
Okay.
in Mexico. So over the years, like we started in Mexico, and when we first started, it was not a like luxury retreat. We were like out at an ashram kind of in the middle of the jungle. But the people who started coming, they really wanted that, right? They want to be taken care of. They want nice air conditioned rooms and um
Yeah.
food. It's like, because that's my whole philosophy is like, you're going to be going through a lot probably emotionally, so everything else should be like care, nice, great. um it's not to say
Yeah, I
that,
need to be cool because I'm perimenopausal.
but I would say that, yeah, the places we tend to find in Mexico are a little bit more like villas, right? And we bring in a massage team. They're kind of a more
Oh.
like luxurious, all inclusive. Joshua
Mm-hmm.
Tree it's beautiful, right? The nature is absolutely insane, and we don't have neighbors, and there's stars out. Like it's really, really beautiful. It's just not quite the same amenities. We still have a hot tub and a cold plunge. Like we still have some good things there. So that's why that's honestly the reason I hadn't done a 7 day there, because I was like,
Okay.
sure if people really want to spend 7 days here. But we are planning, and I should know very soon. I'm looking at a few different places right now for August in Mexico. So we're not going to go to the beach because it's really, really hot in Mexico by the beach in August. But some of the higher mountainous areas like San Miguel de Allende, some places around Mexico City that are higher elevation are actually really beautiful during that time. So I know that if
Okay.
you don't want to travel to a different.
No, I do. I was just thinking like, oh, I can just go. I'm in Maryland. I could just go across the country, but I'm still open. And when you said bougie, look, you didn't say bougie, but I heard bougie. Yeah, I deserve it. I've this
Do
school has been hell, so I'm ready.
Choose yourself up for sure.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, this has been so fun. My dog is down here
Thank you.
scratch my feet off because he was like, why are we not on a walk right now? So take care. Can you guys both please drop me your email in the chat before you go? Just because I like things on here and send you like a little follow-up. So HH, what is your name? Because I don't know.
Heather Hughes.
What is it? What was the first one?
Heather Hughes.
Heather Hughes. Okay.
Yeah, I just usually a lot of people call me HH, and then like I think some of my friends are like, "Can we call you Doctor H?" And I'm like, "Sure, whatever."
Ooh, I like that.
It doesn't matter.
Very cool. All right, Carrie, I'm sending you so much love and so much care. Thank you for starting to explore something like this. I do think when it's the right time, it will be absolutely incredible for you. And um, I'm also not against it. I'm kind of like a Wild West girl myself, in the way that I just love mushrooms so much, and I've seen them just perform unbelievable miracles. And so like I think that we were one of the first retreats, like we've had 16-year-olds with their parents. If anyone's underage, they can come with their parent if they're suffering. Like we've had, severe eating disorders and OCD, and again, like death in the family, like those life moments where you're really on the brink.
Thank you.
Hey, Carrie, have you considered? I just wanted to add this because I'm in the spiritual world too, and you don't have to receive this, but have you considered that maybe your sweet son is nudging you to do this because they can see it? What I have been taught, I'll just say that by shamans, mediums, psychics that are friends of mine, they can see and hear us. So, and you may not believe that, and you don't have to accept that, but like
Yeah.
my mother nudged me to start on my spiritual journey, and I would bet my bottom dollar, I know she did because the signs were there. So just consider that and maybe think about it, because he may be saying, Mom, do this. This would be great. Because they have this knowing that we don't, of course.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And yes, he I know he had done mushrooms in his
Oh,
early
interesting.
20s, and we'd have this conversation, right? And I won't go into all of it, but yes, I
But
do.
you can
Yeah.
connect in the mushroom world. Maybe that's his invitation. Let's meet.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting. I'm getting chills. So something's going on there.
Yeah, and I have a good friend, Amanda, that has done your retreat in Mexico, and I think she also did Joshua Tree, and she was the one
Karina?
that no, Laura.
I just thought of someone who had done both of those. Who is it?
Her name is Laura.
Laura, oh my gosh, I know so.
I don't know what she would have used. Why can't I think of her last name now? Because I'm going to say her maiden name, but Bowden.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, I love people.
Is
It's just
is my
done it.
been a good friend since third grade, and she has come to sit with me in my grief. And we talked about this. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a sign. That's what I'm feeling. But you will know in your heart, though.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you both.
Yeah, it's funny. It's
Thank
not.
you, Amanda, for going overtime. I know that's probably
Yeah.
a little stressful on your end. I understand. Trust me, in my world, it's like I should have been out of here an hour ago.
Thank
You
you.
guys are amazing. Well, I hope to see you in Joshua Tree or Mexico soon.
Oh,
And
you will see me one day for sure. There's no doubt.
Take
Dr. H,
care.
she's
Thank you.
the mushroom.
Bye bye.
Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you so